Okay, to continue on about Malika Calhoun being beat up by Officer Paul Sheen. His trainee was Travis Bruner. They borrowed her mother's car. This is from Revolution Books. They're trying to stop police brutality in Seattle, Washington. It's at 89 South Washington Street, a half a block west of 1st and Washington in Pioneer Square. It's 1 block from Occidental Park. Remember, Sunday, November the 1st, 2009 at 4 p.m. Revolution Books. To continue on, I was falsely arrested and put in jail where I saw a lot of brutality. They put me in a psychiatric hospital and said I thought I had been in the military, but they could find no proof. This is my military ID. Nancy Sack. The VA had come to see me twice while I was there. The ingoing paperwork to Gateway's hospital said she thinks she was in the military. We can find no proof. Didn't all they have to do was look up my social security number? How did the VA come and see me? And all she talks about are her civil rights. They said I was mentally incompetent to understand the charges against me, and they were going to keep me for an entire year. They forced me to take psychiatric drugs while I was at Gateway's hospital. They said they were going to strap me down and give me shots if I didn't take them. And one of the persons that works there, when I was crying, because I knew they would hold me down and give me shots, and I did not want to take their medications because I know what it does to me, started singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose. She was laughing at me. Laughing at me. My counselor asked me, "Who did you piss off?" I'm going to tell you, I pled no contest. I had no choice. They offered me 120 days for trying to trip the police officer, but they were falsely arresting me for telling that girl to stop spraying water all over the grass in Lincoln Park so that the homeless people could sit down. It's the only place where the homeless people could be. You see, people used to bring food and money and clothes to the people in Lincoln Park. For years, they were allowed to go there early in the morning and stay late in the evening. But then this girl with these disabled men got this contract with the city, and she began spraying water everywhere. And they're letting the park fall apart. It was a park that was dedicated to the city of Long Beach for peace between a mayor of Japan and the mayor of Long Beach. And it used to be beautiful, and it had beautiful trees and beautiful flowers. But the city has decided to tear it down. It's right there with City Hall. They have been spraying so much water everywhere that all the concrete is cracked. Wonder why? I tried to trip him. I did, but he only stumbled. I didn't have any shoes on. They were hurting me. They were twisting my wrists and yanking me around when I hadn't done anything wrong except use my voice. Freedom of speech is number one for a reason. Because in England, when it got this bad and the people kept telling them, "Leave us alone," they were arresting them and charging them with crimes they did not commit. That's why freedom of speech was number one in the Constitution. Although they didn't give the black people speech at all. Now they didn't give them anything. Beat them. They didn't let women or blacks vote. What was that all about? Anyway, there was a woman in a Seattle jail, and her name was Ruth. Very tragic story, Ruth. Ruth was separating her psychiatric medications with the butcher knife because she was using it like a spatula. And her husband at the time was trying to take more than she was supposed to. And so she held the knife up to him and said, "Listen, buddy, leave me alone," and went back to doing what she was doing. She did nothing more than point it at the man. She was a very thin, frail, 90-pound old woman in her 70s. And she was so pretty. And when she first got there, she could talk. And she told me the story of what happened. And I told her they were going to charge her with attempted murder. And she said, "What?" She couldn't believe me. I tried to tell her that's what was going to happen because that's what they were going to say. And that's what her husband was going to say. And she couldn't believe it. Because that's not really what happened. She was using it like a pointer. In her mind, it was a spatula. I said, "Where'd you learn to separate your medications that way?" "The pharmacist does it on TV." She thought she was holding a spatula up to his chest. And the little 90-pound woman couldn't possibly have hurt him anyway. And she turned back to separating her medication because she was putting it in a monthly planner. And she was on at least 6 different psychiatric medications. I tried to call her lawyer and tell her lawyer what happened. The telephone in the mental ward here in Seattle, Washington was impossible to call out of unless you had all your mental faculties and you could dial the number. And she would start to dial the number, 1 or 2 numbers, and then she would have to look at her paper, and it would take her a second, and it kept turning off. So I had to get the number and call her sister for her. I saw Ruth go from a vibrant, beautiful woman who couldn't wait to get out because her daughter was getting married, and she had celiac disease. She cried in her cell all night long. She wailed and screamed. By the time she went to the psychiatric hospital, she could no longer talk. Her mouth hung open. She wasn't blinking anymore. I called her sister from Western State Hospital, and they came and saw her there. She couldn't even raise her fork to her own mouth to eat anymore. I was feeding her, and they told me that she could feed herself, and I told them that she couldn't, and I was having my own problems because of things that the police had done to me. By the time it was over, she was laying on the floor with her jail shoes on her wrists. They made her go to her room because they couldn't stand watching her walk around all over the place because she just kept pacing. She didn't know what to do with herself. They didn't take her to the bathroom. She was playing in her own feces. And then they sent her back to jail. And I don't know what happened to her after that.